Good afternoon. I hope you can hear me. And it's Lynn here from the Learn English Network. And this is Absolute Beginners. Okay, Absolute Beginners does what it says on the label. Okay, today we're going to start looking at time. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Now, it's a big topic, but of course, as usual, we're going to take our time. Take your time. Okay, just don't be in a hurry. Spend as much time as you need learning English. Okay, don't be too stressed about learning it quickly. Learn it well. So, we're going to take our time today looking at time. Okay, first of all, we have different times of day. We looked a little bit at this in greetings, when we say good morning, when we say good afternoon, good evening, when do we say good night? Okay, the day is split into different times of day. So, you might have an early start. Oh, let me just go into presenter view, sorry. So, we've got two times here, early and late. Now, what is early for me might be late for you. What is late for you might be early for me. Okay? It depends where you are, what time of day it is. So let's look at the day. If we split it into 4, we have morning, afternoon, evening, and night. So 4 different times of day. Okay, then we have something called daytime. Daytime. Morning and afternoon tend to be daytime. Evening, we just call that evening. It's not really daytime, it's evening, gets its own name. And night, we call it nighttime. Now, sometimes, more times, we in England tend to write it night time with the hyphen, but you will also see it written night time. Okay, and sometimes even 2 separate words, night time. So, day and night, but more than that, morning, afternoon, evening, night. Now, that's okay if I say this session is in the afternoon. Okay, so this session for me is in the daytime. It might be in your nighttime or your evening or your morning. But for me, it's in the afternoon. Now, why afternoon? That's when we have to look at more time. Here we have a clock. Okay, now clocks help us measure time. The sun helps us know what time of day it is. Sun shines in the morning, should be shining at noon and in the afternoon and even in the evening. At night, no, there's no sunshine. So at night it's dark, in the daytime it's light, in the evening It's still light, but it's going dark. Okay? But then we have noon, which we need a clock for. And we have midnight, and we need a clock for midnight. So clocks, well, they basically help us measure time because we split days into different times of the day. Okay? So when we start looking at clocks, we start telling the time. To tell the time. Very important for learning English on the network to be able to tell the time. So to tell the time, we have clocks. This is what we call an analog clock. This is what I call a tick-tock clock. And this is a digital clock. You've probably got a digital clock on your computer. It looks something like this. And it's clocks that help us to tell the time. Sometimes we have an idea of the time. You can look out of the window and think it's daytime. You can think, okay, I've already eaten twice. It must be afternoon maybe. Or I've been at work for hours. It must be afternoon. Maybe it's going home time. But with a clock, you can really tell the time. Now, many clocks are divided into 12 units. Analog clocks, if you notice, there are 12 numbers. Remember, we covered numbers earlier. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 numbers. But digital clocks are different. Digital clocks, sometimes you might see numbers up to 12, but you might see numbers up to 24. Okay, we'll look at that in a moment. Let's look at some other clocks. There are lots of ways of measuring time, and we use lots of different clocks, different kinds of clocks. So, telling the time. Well, in the past, there were no clocks, but we could still tell the time. People used these clocks, these timers. Okay, so sand timers, sand clocks. Okay, hourglasses. Not very accurate. Very difficult to tell exactly what time of day it is from a sand clock. We also had these kinds of clocks. They used the sun, sundials. Okay, so the sun would shine and the shadow that the sun made on this part of the sundial would tell you what time of day it was. Very clever, quite accurate. But you needed the sun, not very useful in the UK. So we invented clocks. And we started measuring the time. So what kind of clocks can you find in the world? Well, there are so many. These are just a few. So we've got clock towers on big buildings like Big Ben. Yeah, there's a big clock on the clock tower in London and on a lot of churches and other large buildings. Then you had do you know what this kind of clock is? The cuckoo clock. Especially in Switzerland and southern Germany, you have the cuckoo clock. Little bird pops out every hour going cuckoo, cuckoo. cuckoo to tell you the time. How sweet. Very annoying. Then we had the grandfather clock. Very big, tall clock sitting on the floor. Bigger, sometimes taller than a human, a grown human. A grandfather clock. Now they went tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. And the pendulum clock, with the pendulum, again tick-tock, tick-tock. Then we have watches. Now watches aren't strictly clocks. Watches measure time, but they're portable. You can take them with you. And the old pocket watch, it would go in a gentleman's pocket. Okay? Might not have covered pockets yet. You'll find it in the vocabulary section on clothes. The pocket watch. And then more modern, we have the carriage clock. You could put it on a shelf. Yeah. Then my least favourite clock, the alarm clock in the bedroom to wake you up in the morning. I won't use my special effect alarm. Those of you who come to other sessions know I do have one. But it rings when it's time to wake up. Why don't we have an alarm clock to go to bed? Then another watch. This is a wristwatch. You wear it on your wrist. Okay, it has a strap and a watch and a buckle. Then the wall clock, which hangs on the wall. Maybe the kitchen clock, yeah, but it's a wall clock. It hangs on the wall. And then we have the more modern digital clocks. So this is a digital alarm clock. Look, it's got 3 buttons. Snooze button, my favourite button, snooze. Another digital clock, yeah, maybe also on a shelf, like the carriage clock. And then we have the more modern style. Is this a watch? Is it a clock? I don't know. It does everything on our smartphone. Suddenly, people aren't wearing a wristwatch. They're just using their smartphone to tell the time. And this is a special kind of watch. This measures time, but it doesn't necessarily tell you the time. This is a stopwatch. Okay, so you can measure how long you've been boiling your egg. Now, this will also tell you how long you've been boiling your egg. In the UK, you can buy a timer like this. We call it an egg timer. In the past, it was used as a clock, but now you can use it to time your egg. And the smartwatch. Okay, now the smartwatch tells you the time, but it might also tell you if you've got an appointment, or it might tell you that you've got somebody ringing you. You've got someone sending you an email. Your smartwatch. Smartphone, smartwatch. Okay, so clocks are used to measure units of time. If we think about time as a unit, as a number, yeah, and the numbers are limited by how many units. If you can imagine that, yes? So, we measure a day by the number of hours in the day. And if you notice, we have 24 hours in a day. So you have 24 hours. Now, in that hour, we have other units called minutes. So there are 60 minutes in an hour and 24 hours in a day. And then those minutes, we have other units called seconds. So there are 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day. Now, 24 hours in a day, but 12 hours on an analog clock. Now, there are 12 hours before noon and 12 hours after noon. So, your analog clock has only got 12 hours. Digital clocks can show 24 hours, but we don't speak in the 24-hour clock unless you're a soldier or maybe a policeman. We use the 12-hour clock when we're speaking in units of 12. Now, here there's a handy little table that shows you the times. 1 to 12, it's easy. 1 o'clock in the morning, 1 a.m. 2 o'clock, 2 a.m. 3 o'clock, 3 a.m. and so on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now 12 is a funny one when we're looking at a clock like this. So midday, we say noon, 12 noon, midday. That way, when we're talking about time, we know which 12 we mean. So what happens when we go past 12 noon? Well, we're afternoon then. We're in the afternoon. So 12 hours before noon, we say AM. Latin. Short form Latin. Oh no. Now it means anti-meridium, but we just say AM. Okay, don't worry about the Latin. That means morning or before noon, before this 12 o'clock. And then afternoon, we've got PM. And that literally means afternoon, post-meridium Latin, afternoon. So 1 p.m. is in the afternoon. 4 p.m. is in the afternoon. Okay? Noon, afternoon. AM, before noon. And we have the same, but we have 13, but that means 1 p.m. 14, 2 p.m. 15, 3 p.m. Soldiers say 1600 hours. Nobody says that normally. My session does not start at 1600 hours. Really. So, 5 p.m, 6 p.m, 7 p.m, 8 p.m. And then we have this other problem, the second 12 o'clock. So instead of saying 12 o'clock, we say midnight. In the midnight hour, in the middle of the night, midnight. So we have two 12 o'clocks with slightly different names, noon and midnight. It's really useful to know those two times so that you can make it clear. We don't say 12 a.m, we don't say 12 p.m, because people get confused. Is that 12 p.m. afternoon or 12 a.m. before the morning? Oh, no. Midnight, noon. Then you know. Okay, so if there are 60 minutes an hour and 60 seconds in a minute, how many seconds are there in an hour? And if there are 60 minutes in an hour, but 24 hours in a day, how many minutes are there in a day? Ooh. How good is your math? You can Google it. It's really good if you Google it, yeah? You need to know what to ask Google. So you can ask Google now, how many seconds are there in an hour? And Google will tell you. There's Google. How many seconds are there in an hour? Oh, I should put a question mark. So 1 hour equals 3,600 seconds. How many minutes are there in a day? Ask Google. One day, 1,440 minutes. You can ask Google anything. Google's very clever. Google calculated. Let's do a little bit of math. Okay, Google calculated how many seconds there are in an hour. There are 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. So 60 times 60, remember our math symbol in the numbers session? 60 times 60 or 60 multiplied by 60 equals or is 3,600 seconds in an hour. How many minutes are there in a day? Google calculated it. There are 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day. 60 multiplied by 24 equals 1,440 minutes. So with time, knowing a little bit of mathematics is useful. I'll see you in 20 minutes. How many seconds is that? So there are lots of questions you can ask about time. How many? That's a new question. How many? How many students are there in the network? How many members are there on the forum? How many seconds in a minute? How many? When you can count things. Okay. The other question you might want to ask is to know the time. And again, lots of different ways to ask the time. You can choose what kind of question you want to ask. So, the standard question is, what time is it, please? Or, could you tell me what time it is? Notice, what time is it? Could you tell me what time it is? Could you tell me the time? Or could you tell me the time, please? Could is it's very formal but very polite. Could you? Could you tell me the time? Can you? Less polite. So ask please. Please is very important in British English. Mind your P's and Q's. Please and thank you. It helps when you're talking to people to be polite. Can you tell me the time, please? And excuse me, do you have the time? Okay, you're asking, what time is it? Lots of different ways. Okay, do you happen to know what time it is? Do you have the time on you? Lots and lots of different ways of asking the same question. You can choose which you prefer. Maybe start with, what time is it, please? What time does this session start? Is that correct? I don't think that's correct, is it? Okay, so let's go to make some changes here because that's not correct, is it? It's very important to know the time. So what time does this session start? It starts around 4:30 p.m. No, it doesn't. What time does this session end? It ends around 5 p.m. No, it doesn't. That's wrong. So what would happen if you came to the session at 4:30 p.m., what would happen? Because it's important to be on time. It's very important to be punctual. Punctuality. Now, when we're talking about sessions and meetings and dates, meeting your friends, meetings in business, courses, sessions, timetables, it's very important to be on time, punctuality. So when we were looking at our sessions, we talked about what time, there's the question, does this session start? It starts around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 p.m. Okay. What time does it end? It ends around 4:30 in the afternoon, 4:30 p.m. Around means a few minutes before or after. I sometimes say ish, 4-ish. Okay, so to be punctual, you on time. Literally we say to be on time. 4 p.m. the session starts. 1600 hours if you're a soldier. 4 o'clock in the afternoon. My time. Central European time, the time in Berlin. Your time might be different. So calculating time is very important. We will cover that in another session. How do you calculate time? But for this session, we'll stay in Berlin. Now, if you're on time, you're here at 4 o'clock. If you're early or a bit early, you might log on at 5 to 4. If you're too early, you might log on at 3 o'clock. The session hasn't started at 3 o'clock. That's too early. Too, with 2 O's, too. Nice long oo. Oh, you're too early. We haven't started yet. You're early? That's okay. Just wait 5 minutes. You're on time? Brilliant. 5 minutes past 4 o'clock. That means you're late. Oh no. How late is late? How early is early? Well, 5 minutes late is okay. It's not too bad. Too late. 5 o'clock. No, the session has finished. Then you're too late. You've missed it. Too early, got a long wait. Too late, you've missed the session. So early, on time, late. It's always better to be a little early or on time. Being punctual, it's important. It's not terrible if you're a little late. But if you're too late, it's horrible. Oh no, I'm too late. They've finished. If you're too early, it's annoying. Oh, I'm an hour early, but not too bad. But being too late is bad. No one wants to be too late. Okay, so I hope that's a little bit of enough information for you to start. Okay, now there is more. If that's too simple for you, remember this is absolute beginners and we are going to take our time. If you want more, if that was too simple for you, then by all means you can go to the website. Okay, and you can learn a little bit more about time on the basics page. So if you go to, let me just show you here, go to learnenglish.de, click on vocabulary and then basics, and you've got time there. So we will be looking at the different ways of describing the time in the future, but you can learn in your own time as well, okay? And there are lessons about time on Leo, Learn English Online. So if you go to Learn English Online, the lessons page, you can practice telling the time. Okay, so go to telling the time and you can practice telling the time here. Okay, so 2 ways of practicing. Practice makes perfect. Now, the image sources for this, if somebody is looking at this or looks at the page and they think, oh, I like these images, I'll take them. These images are actually licensed to the Learn English Network, okay, from Animation Factory and from Adobe. So please don't take the images. These companies don't like it. They might come after you. So sometimes we do use free images, but this week the images are from licensed websites. Never mind, we've run out of time. To run out of time, another idiom. When time has run out. Okay. No running involved, but it's unfortunate that we have run out of time. So maybe next time. Next week, I'll hope to see you in the room. So take care. If you missed it, watch the recording on YouTube. I'll see you another time. Bye.